Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We here at KCHF TV and Issues and Answers are proud to bring you candidates who are running in the June 7th primary. And my guest today is running for U.S. Representative for District 1. Now, this candidate has dressed in an APD uniform, has grabbed a gun belt, and also grabbed her shotgun to work in the war zone for a number of years here in Albuquerque. But not only that, on a daily basis, she used to work with 80 attorneys. Can you imagine that? Every day working with 80 different attorneys? My guest today is Michelle Garcia Holmes. She is running for U.S. Representative in District 1. She is born in Albuquerque. She has a BA degree in occupational education from Wayland Baptist University. She was a police officer when she grabbed that gun belt and her shotgun, and a police officer for a number of years, a detective with APD, and also was a chief of staff for Attorney General Gary King. Now, I've told you a whole mouthful about Michelle Garcia Holmes, but we're going to learn more about her, that she was also an ordained senior chaplain and is a Blue Star mother. What more can you be? Well, she's a candidate for U.S. Congress in District 1. So stay with us as we meet Michelle Garcia Holmes right after this.
The National Education Association of New Mexico, a union of teachers and school staff, believes every child deserves to learn at a school that inspires their imagination, cultivates their curiosity, and ensures a fulfilling life. Public schools should provide all our students with small class sizes and one-on-one attention. NEA New Mexico asks you to join us so together we can end the teacher and staff shortage and invest in our public education system once and for all. Sponsored by NEA New Mexico.
I told you a lot about Michelle Garcia Holmes, a lot about her background, but now you're going to meet her, and I'm going to welcome you to Issues and Answers. Thank you so much for being a part of this program and for running for Congress.
Well, thank you for having me here today. Sometimes I listen to the introduction and I'm like, wow, I did all that.
And I had heard you say that you wore the APD uniform, you grabbed your gun belt and your shotgun, and that was kind of shocking to me, but you'd like to share with people that you were a young police officer here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I was born and raised here in Albuquerque, and I kind of like to share with audiences just where my career has gone. You know, every day, like you said in the introduction, you know, I put my uniform on, put my gun belt on, made sure I had my Kevlar vest on, grabbed my shotgun and jumped into my patrol car and went to work every day. For 10 years I worked in the International District, but we called it the war zone back then. Just a really tough area to work, but I loved it. You know, I loved the people. That was one of the things that drew me to that community, and the kids. You know, they'd call us from time to time. The teachers would want us to come into the schools, talk to the kids, visit with them. Just a really tough area to work, though. High crime, lots of drug trafficking, human trafficking.
Back then, of course.
Even back then.
Even back then. Worse probably today.
Yes.
And they changed the name from the war zone to the International District, and that's around Central and...
I would say east of Louisiana, around Central, east of, you know, San Pedro. In that area, but mainly east of Louisiana is where I worked.
You were a patrol officer for 10 years, and then you were an APD detective.
Yes.
Tell me about that experience,
I
Michelle.
eventually transferred over to the Detective Bureau, and I worked property crimes, narcotics. I worked various divisions within the department, and I really enjoyed that career. I worked in violent crimes, sex crimes, and did my last 4 years in the Crimes Against Children division, where we investigated child abuse cases and child homicides. It was an interesting career. I enjoyed it very much.
How many years were you with APD?
20.
20, and then you worked from that point with the Attorney General Gary King.
Yes,
And that's when you worked with 80 attorneys a day?
Yes, I grew up with the King family. Bruce King was a very good family friend. He actually attended my police academy graduation. And, the family has always been near and dear to our hearts. Well, one day Governor King calls and says, I want you to help my son. He's going to be the Attorney General and he needs some help. So I met with Gary and we talked about me working for him, and I became his chief of staff during his tenure there as Attorney General.
Was that for 8 years?
8 years, yes. It was rather interesting, I helped him achieve his goals, helped him set out his agenda. One of the things he wanted to do was start the very first statewide government corruption investigative division. So I helped him organize that, hire the attorneys, hire the special agents to do the investigations, and worked with the legislature to get the funding for that new division, and we hit the ground running.
Finding corruption in government.
Yes. Some of the cases that we did, worked on over the years, you might remember the Secretary of State Rebecca V. Hill-Hidon case. We did the Jerome Block case. We did quite a few cases.
What about the treasurer candidates? Or not the treasurer candidates, the treasurer. I think V. Hill.
V. Hill was the Secretary of State at the time. Yeah.
But anyways, a lot of different corruption cases that you worked on.
We
in this new
did.
division.
We got a lot of referrals from.
Oh, it was Montoya was state treasurer. Anyways, I remember seeing a lot of problems in that treasurer's office as well.
There's just a lot of problems in our entire state, and we see it now, and this is part of why I'm running. If you think about, where we're at as a state in education, crime, our border issues, our lack of a good economy, or lack of good jobs for people to thrive in, for families to thrive in. I look at these things and I say, wow, we're one of the best states to live in the entire world. I don't just say country, I say world.
I've never heard that. That's good.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of places that have what we have, the culture, the heritage. I'm part Native American, and I'm part Spanish, and I'm part Anglo. So I'm in conflict all the time, right? But I just think about, just the culture and heritage, the food, the places you can visit, the environment,
the beauty, the weather,
the low cost of living.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. But I never heard the best state in the world.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here.
Where else?
Yeah.
But we do have a number of problems.
We do, and we've been like that for quite some time. And it's troublesome. It's troublesome to me. I've been on both sides of the parties, right? Back during the Governor King days, I was a registered Democrat, right? I became an independent, and then now I'm a Republican. I'm right where I should have been all along. I mean, I feel like my values, what I stand for, better align with the Republican Party platform. But I just look at all of that as a whole, and really, back in the days, Democrats were much more conservative, in my opinion, under the King days. The initiatives that they were doing back then during Governor King's tenure.
In the ranch days and your great-grandfather's days as a rancher in northern New Mexico?
Yeah, it's very different. Now we have some different maneuvering. We have progressive Democrats now, which are very far left, and it's been very difficult to work.
And a lot of money from out of state,
yes,
which is coming into our state, funding a lot of these candidates.
Yes, George Soros, people like George Soros, funding our district attorney. It's odd, and when we see those things, I start to wonder, what's going on in New Mexico? I really feel like if at this point in time, I feel like if you're a registered Democrat, you need to start reflecting on how you vote. Because the Democratic platform is no longer the platform that you started with. And so now looking at this upcoming election, of course we have the primary where Republicans can only vote for Republicans, Democrats can only vote for Democrats. But come November, I have this slogan that I always say, remember in November. Democrats have been in office, and we've been Democrat dominated for over 90 years in this state, and they are not delivering. We're 50th in education. The poverty rates are astronomical. 72% of our children are on Medicaid. We have the highest unemployment rate in the country right now, the highest unemployment rate in the country. So as I say all these things, we're known nationally for some of our horrendous crimes. I mean, we just adjudicated part of the Victoria Martins case. We made national news on that child abuse case, that child homicide. I don't want to be known for that in New Mexico. I want to lift our people up. I want to make things better for New Mexico. And we start with the crime issues, and we start with securing our border. And we start with more economic development, start to deregulate a little bit more and make our community more business friendly.
Which we didn't see certainly during the pandemic, did we?
No, we lost 40% of our businesses here, right here in Albuquerque alone.
What are you hearing on the campaign trail as you travel? And tell us about the district. You've run for CD1 previously.
Yes.
You ran as lieutenant governor in a general election with Steve Pierce as the governor candidate. You are the lieutenant governor. Again, you ran for CD1, but the district now has changed quite a bit.
Yes.
So you've been traveling the district. I mean, we have a huge state. We only have 3 congressional districts. One, I'll say, is kind of used to be kind of the heart.
Right.
I shouldn't say the heart because the whole state has heart, but the center, Albuquerque, Bernalillo. District 2 is down with the Nevada Herald in the southern, and 3 was northern New Mexico. But redistricting every 10 years with the U.S. Census has changed that. But you believe that favors your candidacy?
I think it favors all 3 districts, in my opinion. I mean, Yvette Harrell is an incumbent, so she has a distinct advantage. She did garner part of the Southwest Mesa, South Valley. She did lose some high Republican areas, but I still think she's going to do very well. District 1 actually benefited to me the most because if you think about areas that we garnered in District 1, we got all of Rio Rancho, the city of Rio Rancho. We got all of Lincoln County, a portion of Chavez County, which is the north side of Roswell. And
that's a big county going all the way from Rio Rancho down to Roswell, correct?
Yes, it's quite a distance. But I think I garnered some of the best places we have in New Mexico, if you ask me. Roswell, known for its aliens. I mean, that's the first thing you see when you travel to Roswell, and the people are wonderful.
And how far north does District 1 go?
It goes, Roswell, the north side of Roswell.
Okay, so north of Rio Rancho into a little bit of...
Oh, north, I'm sorry. So we go all the way to Placitas area. We have some of Santa Fe County as you proceed east into the Edgewood and East Mountains area. And all the way to DeBaca and Guadalupe counties. So you pass through Torrance, and it's a big area. It's a lot of rural New Mexico, and it's a lot of big cities. Rio Rancho is a huge city. Albuquerque, a very big city. Yeah.
What are people telling you? What are voters telling you, Michelle Garcia Holmes?
They want change. They want change. I've heard a lot of Democrats say, I'm done with the Democratic Party. A lot of Republicans feel like they wonder if their vote was counted last election cycle. I hear a lot of that on the campaign trail. I think we need to boost our voter integrity. I think we need to have voter ID in New Mexico so that people feel like their vote is being counted, and we have people who are, can vote. We need to make sure that they're able to vote. The other thing is they want more transparency, and I think an opportunity to be able to have forensic audits right after elections is really important. I think it.
And what would that do, Michelle?
So we can evaluate each county and make sure that the numbers all match, to the amount of voters, the amount of votes. Every vote that was cast, by a qualified voter is counted. And I think that's huge for our community, especially now with the thoughts that maybe, the election was stolen or there was fraudulent acts during that election. There is voter fraud out there, and I know that because when I worked for the Attorney General's office, we actually submitted cases to the FBI. We actually submitted cases to local district attorneys to be prosecuted. So I'm very familiar with various cases of voter fraud. So people, I think, right now are saying things like, I want to know my vote was counted. And I want to make sure no one cancels it out that isn't qualified to vote, right?
Right, that's true.
And I think that's important
You always
for
question,
us.
I wonder, if it goes into a machine, you wonder.
You wonder.
Regarding the border and President Biden lifting Title 42
Yes.
that was implemented during the previous president, meaning secure our borders in terms of we are concerned about the pandemic, our health safety with
Right.
this pandemic. People who wanted to enter our country, we didn't know if they had the pandemic, had COVID, but they were allowed into our country until President Bush said no more.
Well, this is the thing. I really disagree with Biden's stance on the border and the vice president as well. She hasn't even, being the border czar, and she hasn't even visited the border. I find a problem with that. There are a lot of things happening at the border, and I'll share a quick story with you. My husband and I were traveling to Ruidoso, and law enforcement blocked the highway. We were on I-25. They had people who had what they call getaways, who cross and they don't stop at the inspection stations, and Border Patrol then initiates a chase to stop them, to identify them, right?
Okay, they ran the border stop. Okay, didn't realize that.
They ran the inspection station. Border Patrol was chasing them, and they crossed into the southbound lanes and started going northbound in the southbound lanes. So officers blocked the highway. The officers stepped out. He was all by himself. There were a few other officers further south, and he said, "Sir, ma'am, there's a chase and with some people that ran the border or ran the inspection station, and they're coming right in our direction in the southbound lanes. They're going northbound in the southbound lanes." And I said, "Well, you know what? We better say a prayer." And the officer's face kind of, "What? No, we need to do something, not say a prayer." I said a quick prayer, and at that point, we were in our RV, so we helped block the highway. And I said, "You know what? I don't think they're going to make it to our location." And at the crest of the hill, all of a sudden, the offender's car rolled over. A lot of the officers that were chasing them then took those people into custody. Whenever that happens on a chase, people run out of the car if they're still running from you, right? So eventually they were all taken into custody, but my husband and I got to call 911 and let them know where a couple of the other runners were, and took them all into custody. I spoke with the police chief in Socorro, and he said, "Yeah, I think they got them all into custody." He said, "So thanks for calling 911. But these are the things that are happening. Our law enforcement officers our resources and our law enforcement officers, they're being taxed every day with these kind of issues. So we need to secure our border.
And you saw it firsthand.
And we saw, we saw it firsthand. You never expect to kind of be put in that position again, but we were ready to take action if we had to.
So what would you like to see it done at the border, Michelle Garcia Holmes?
I think we need some immigration reform. I think we need to just obey the rules. There are laws in place that, people for years have implemented perfectly good laws that we can start to utilize. Right now, the Biden administration is just processing.
Yeah.
Why aren't we prosecuting? Why aren't we doing more at the border? Why aren't we looking at who's coming into our country?
And you believe the border problems at the border are coming into Congressional District 1.
Oh, absolutely. We have human trafficking in Albuquerque that I've seen. I've, spoken to law enforcement officers. I've seen firsthand. We have drug trafficking at alarming rates. The drug traffickers are actually controlling our border. Let's just put it right.
What do you mean by that?
Basically, they call the shots at the border. We only have so many border agents that are there that can process people. When you think about what's happening with our border agents, we've got children just showing up at the border. They're having to buy baby bottles. They're having to buy diapers. They're having to deal with these issues and identify these children. They call them unaccompanied minors. I call them abandoned children. These are child abuse cases, in my opinion, right? So they're having to take the time to identify these people.
Taking a lot of resources for that.
It's just tons of resources.
I think it's the first time I heard abandoned children would be child abuse. I had never heard that before from anyone.
Right. Because, under a Democratic administration, they want to call them unaccompanied minors. But to me, these are abandoned children.
And you dealt with abandoned children and crimes against children when you worked with the Attorney General's office.
Anytime you leave a child alone, there's been 7-year-olds at the border that have disclosed that they've come from other countries. They're there at the border. They've disclosed sexual assaults. Horrendous things have happened to these children at the border. And these border agents are having to deal with that. In the meantime, drug traffickers and bad actors, illegal aliens are crossing that border every day. And they're coming from countries like Turkey, Syria, Honduras, El Salvador, Haiti. And I'm not saying these are all bad people, right? But we need to identify them. We need to make sure that we're not going back to the 80s when Fidel Castro let all of his prisoners out of prison. Think about it. It's 25 to 35-year-olds
that were released into our country.
They were released into our country.
Since you ran for CD1 previously, inflation has been, I'm sure, a huge concern of the voters.
Huge.
What are they telling you? What are their concerns?
Gasoline. They are having to pay so much at the pump, it's ridiculous. And, us being a gas and oil state, come on. We should be paying a whole lot less for our gasoline to fill our tanks. And the people that it hurts the worst are people on fixed incomes, our seniors, our single parents.
What could you do as a congressperson from
Well, one
CD1?
of the things that I really support is our oil and gas industry. Come on. I totally understand climate change. I totally understand protecting the environment. I grew up in that generation where we, protected the environment. We thought about those issues. But we are an energy state, and we need to start tapping into those resources and support our oil and gas industry. We need to start freeing up some of those requests for leases. We need to deregulate a little bit and start working with the industry that provides so much revenue for our educational system. And let me just tell you about our educational system. We financially, we're spending about $22,000 per child. That is the largest number in the country per child. I think it's time to have school choice where the money should follow the child. I think we need to empower our parents so that they can say, look, I've got this fund for my child, and I'm going to get them the very best education that I can. And let's get the school system on their toes now. If they think they're going to lose a student, what do you think is going to happen? Right?
Competition.
School choice, competition. They're going to start working harder. They're going to start educating our kids. Getting back to the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic. I know I went from energy to education. But
energy pays for our education.
Yes, they work hand in hand. And I think we need to start giving our kids aptitude tests and seeing what their passion is. Once you know what a child's passion is, they can thrive. And that's not happening in New Mexico. It's very obvious. It's not happening here.
How did you become a police officer? Was your passion? You were a young police officer.
It was my passion. Let me tell you exactly how it happened. I was sitting on my porch one day, and a local officer drove up, said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "How old are you?" And I said, I'm going to be turning 21 soon. He goes, "You should go on a ride along and become a policewoman." And I said, I want to go on a ride along. I went on a ride along, and the rest was history. I said,
amazing.
wow, this is an amazing job. I want to do this, and it became my passion.
That's an amazing story. Michelle Garcia Holmes, we have a few minutes left. We touched upon the border, inflation, crime, a little bit smaller government, lower taxes, the gas prices.
Yes.
What else would you like to share with viewers about some of your positions?
I want to talk about driving down crime a little bit, being that really is my forte. I've worked on legislation. I've found funding for local law enforcement, rural law enforcement. I really want to work with a lot of our DOJ grants at the federal level and bring that money back to our cities so that our officers can do their jobs. We also have a DOJ monitor that's been here in Albuquerque for 7 years, and crime is up 68%. So the model that he's using isn't working. So we need to find a new model, either get the DOJ monitor out of here, bring in a new model, work with the international chiefs of police. There's so many other alternatives that we can turn to in this day and age. But for 7 years and to watch our crime go up, that's just wrong. That's bad management. Those are bad policies. That shouldn't have happened at all. Crime should have gone down. Our officers should
What
have
could
been
you do as a congressperson from CD1 to affect that
funding.
change?
Grant funding. I think the other thing I would like to do is work with our attorneys general across the country to try and get the DOJ monitor to move on and us start to look at a new model that we can bring into our police departments across our state.
Are there other models out there?
There are. There are a lot of models out there, and we need to look at which one is going to fit us best here, our culture, our heritage, our people, and see what works best for New Mexico to drive down crime. I'd like for the voters to visit my webpage so they can find out more about me. I've posted my entire resume on my webpage. I kind of see this as a job interview. Interview me, look at my resume, and hopefully I'll get your vote June 7th.
And before we close, they can look at your website. That's where I got a lot of my information. Of course, reading about you in the journal since you've run for positions before. I think the mayor of Albuquerque as well.
Yes.
But you served as an ordained senior chaplain. Tell me a little bit about that in the last minute we have, and being a Blue Star mother.
Oh, well, my son is in the United States Army, and I'm so proud of him. He's served for about 11 years now, and he is in a Special Forces unit in Fort Bragg. And he's just doing a great job protecting our country. I just adore him, and I'm so proud of him. And that's part of being a Blue Star mom, and then being a chaplain. I went to chaplain school after I retired from the Albuquerque Police Department, and I just enjoy the Lord. He guides my feet. He guides my mind most of the time. And he hopefully guides my mouth in my direction. I mean, my husband and I prayed about this before we jumped into this race. But I really felt like, I have these qualifications. I've worked on legislative issues. I've drafted legislation. I think that's the next step, is to get to Washington and be a voice for New Mexicans in Washington.
And the culture here.
Yes.
You've got 3 of them.
Yes.
Michelle Garcia Holmes, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us on Issues and Answers, and for all the public service you and your family have provided our state and our country.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for watching. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join. I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture. It helped me get my job, helped me pay for my house. Being part-time really helped because I could have some opportunities that were still in education.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.